Alright, hello everyone. Welcome to the second episode of NULL Train DevLog, and we've made a lot of changes since the last one. So first you can notice that we have this kind of main menu screen, and this is what'll just be for the demo, but now you can actually have different, save game loads. You can also delete your saves and exit the game. I have one prepared already, so let's open that up. And so immediately you'll notice that we have a new kind of hub area for when you want to play the game and kind of in between your runs. So one thing about the train station is there will be these background NPCs that will walk back and forth, and they'll just randomly choose from a few templates that I made. And I think it kind of gives a lot of depth to the scene and makes it seem like, there's actually stuff going on at this train station. And so to board the train, you of course have to talk to the conductor or the ticket master. He'll ask you if you're ready, and you just say yes or no. If you say yes, then the train will show up and you'll board the train. So we've also added music, as you can see. I kind of like, this is just some free background music that we added. And one thing that I like is I've added this, I've kind of revamped the inventory system. So if you go to the settings, you can actually turn the music off, and you can also turn the sound effects off. So for this devlog, I'm just going to keep the music off. And so we also added a lot of new items, and one thing you'll notice is that the text in the items are color coded, and so certain things that are positive will have a green color. If it's negative, it'll be a red color, as well as the enemy types will be different colors so that you can kind of easily differentiate between items at a glance. And then if we go to our inventory, we can see that all of our items will show up here, as well as a short description of what it is, so you can kind of reference that when making your unique builds for every run. So another thing that was changed a lot were the insides. So I kind of wanted to make the insides a little more varied and a little more interesting, especially fitting the theme of the game. So this one, it's kind of like, it's an aquarium kind of inside, and the idea is that the insides can really be anything because the train is super weird and anomalous, so here we have a fish tank that we can walk behind, as well as this wet floor sign. And so you'll notice that some elements are placed in front of the player and others are placed in the back, and this is just to add depth to the scene and make it look a little more interesting to play through. So here's another cool background. This one is more of an office space, and you can actually ride an elevator to get to the second floor. We also added a bunch of new enemies. As you can see, we have a dinosaur down here. Yeah, so the dinosaur will just follow you and attack you if you don't move out of the way. But luckily we're stronger than the dinosaur. Another thing you'll notice is that on the bottom we have these train cars, and every time you go to another level you'll notice that it actually gets a little bit longer. And so this is kind of just to represent how many train cars that you've completed. Here's another cool item we added. I like this one because it creates a little explosion, and it actually has a light effect, so if we get a dark room I'll be able to show that. Here's something cool is our equipable items, the ones that show up, will be in this top slot in the backpack inventory. And you'll see that this alchemist glove increases your chance of rain, and so does this water gun. So these two items are actually pretty good to have together because they both increase your chance of rain. But you also want to get another item that maybe increases your damage while in the rain, and so that's kind of the idea of the game, is you want to kind of get items that increase the chance of certain effects happening, and then also get items that make it so that when those effects happen, you get some sort of benefit or bonus. And so that way, because there's so many different effects and so many different types of enemies, you can create lots of different combinations with the way you want to play the game and the items that you can get. So you could potentially make some very powerful builds if you come across the right items. So here's a great example, is looking at the Dragon Tome. When you have this, you actually do extra melee damage to monsters, and Excalibur also makes you do more damage to monsters, so having these two together is a very good idea. But maybe, for example, having the Bionic Nerves, which gives you more range damage, and this gives you more melee damage, these won't necessarily synergize together. So once you get to the 10th level, you will always end up fighting a boss. Right now there are two different bosses you can fight. This first one is kind of like a giant mech robot, and the bosses will have a lot more health. So the bosses can also be of the different enemy types, so when you play the game, you kind of want to think about which items you're collecting so that you can have a better chance of being able to defeat the boss. For example, I have the water gun right now, which does actually extra range damage to machines, which is perfect against this enemy. And so when you beat the boss, you actually get these tickets, and these tickets are pretty much your currency for the game. There are a lot of different train effects you can get. In this case, this train is dark, and you'll see that on the left-hand side. It'll say what the effect is, and each effect has a small chance of happening every time, so you could get one effect, no effects, or even multiple different effects in one train car. One example of an effect is darkness, but lucky for us, we have this the alchemist glove, which produces fire, which actually lights up the scene a little bit every time you snap, as well as this gun, which will shoot a glowing bullet, which also lights up the scene. So there are a lot of lighting elements to consider when choosing the items. Anyways, that's about it for this devlog. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.